Hey Toy fans, I'm Robert and this is Greg.
Hey.
Hey, and we're back with another week of Project Geek Week. We have a big week for you guys here today. As you may have noticed, we didn't have a show last week, but a lot of news still came out just despite us, basically. So we've got news to cover from last week and a couple of reviews, and we're going to go ahead and talk about everything that came out this week. Now, we might move ahead at a little bit of a clipping speed as we try to cover everything, but there really is a lot we want to talk about. So the first thing we're going to mention is that last week, an image came out for Suicide Squad that showed the entire cast.
Yeah.
You may remember the last show that we did. We kind of commented on the Joker image, I believe. Was that the week that came out?
Yeah, it was around that time, yeah.
So we covered that already, but then after that we got an entire cast out. So why don't you go ahead? Well, first let me mention, I'm going to put the image up on the screen here, of who all the characters are in the shot. Moving from left to right, we've got Slipknot, Captain Boomerang, Katana's Crouching, we have Enchantress, Rick Flag, Harley Quinn, Deadshot, Killer Croc, and El Diablo. So, real quick, what are your thoughts on the image?
Well, I don't know a lot of the characters. Like, Katana just showed up on Arrow. Captain Boomerang was on Flash earlier in the season, I think. And I know Harley, obviously. But my first thought when I saw it was, oh yeah, Will Smith is Deadshot.
Yeah, right? I mean,
yeah.
So.
And then later I was like, oh hey, and Mr. Echo from Lost is Killer Croc.
Very good. I didn't even pick up on that one.
Yeah, so I mean, I nothing off-putting, I guess. If anything, I'd say maybe it was a little bit bland on the color palette.
Okay.
But that just kind of fits what they've been doing with the whole new DC movie universe, how they're doing stuff.
No, I mean, I would agree to some extent, too. I mean, it did seem, I don't want to say washed out, but everything just seemed kind of samey in that sense. Like, Harley Quinn was kind of the only standout as far as color palette was concerned.
Yeah.
We did actually get an additional shot of Deadshot as well. Will Smith released another image on his Twitter, not Twitter, his Facebook, showing Deadshot's mask.
Yeah.
And it's notable that the reticule over Deadshot's eye is on the opposite side that it normally is.
Interesting.
So... but anyway, I think my thoughts of the images it was nice to see everybody, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, as far as just an early press promotion, it's good.
Yeah,
to see them.
yeah. So, but we'll obviously get more of that as the film's going on, and you guys can see on an almost daily basis, there's more pictures coming out from set and everything of what these guys look like. So, moving on from that, we have a bit of Captain America Civil War news to kind of go over. Latino review journalist, or former Latino review journalist, Humberto Gonzalez had tweeted out an image, I think last week, of Iron Man's armor for Captain America Civil War, and it's very much in line with the bleeding edge armor from the comics. So that was during the Marvel Heroic Age, which was like 3 years ago now in comics. So I would say it's almost a direct adaptation of the armor that Tony wore during that story. And what's notable about that is during the bleeding edge armor, I guess, is armor that more or less secretes from Tony's skin. So we saw steps towards that in Iron Man 3 when he was like plugging himself with the receivers, I guess.
You think he's going to have that?
I wonder if he is, or some variation of it. I mean, he's already
trying to one-up the Reverse Flash suit ring.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, it'd be pretty cool to see that on the screen, I think. So it's notable that that's going to be in the movie. Also, we had quite a bit of casting come out for this film. Most notable is that Martin Freeman has been cast in the movie in an unspecified role.
Yeah, so what's that going to be?
There's some speculation out there, and I didn't read all the Black Panther's run. The Reggie Hudlin run and stuff that came after that. But it seems like that Martin Freeman may be playing a liaison of sorts, either from United Nations or some sort of government representative that speaks to Black Panther.
So not a hero.
Not a hero, yeah. So he'll be a suited guy, possibly a guy with nefarious intentions. I guess we'll see when the movie comes out.
Yeah.
I don't see him playing any sort of hero, but I don't know that he needs to play a hero. We don't have to have everybody be a single superhero.
It's just whenever you see somebody cast in a superhero movie, you're like, oh my gosh, who
right, that's a natural assumption.
Yeah.
I just can't think of any superheroes that Martin Freeman really seems like he'd be a good fit for.
I had the same problem too when I was looking at the notes, yeah.
So, but it's interesting and notable. Of course, if you guys don't know Martin Freeman, he was in the BBC Office. He was what we now know as Jim in the American Office. He was in The Hobbit, of course. He was Bilbo Baggins. And he was in BBC Sherlock. He plays Watson. So he's got a bit of a nice acting pedigree there.
Oh, yeah.
And Marvel Studios themselves are actually the ones who announced that he was going to be in the movie. And at the same time that they announced him, or a little bit after maybe, they also announced that Paul Rudd, Ant-Man, is officially going to be in the movie. So we get yet another Avenger, presumed Avenger, added to the cast of Captain America Civil War.
And spoilers, he survives his movie.
Yeah, exactly, right? Yeah. So interesting to see which side of the line he falls there in that movie. Emily Van Camp is coming back as Agent 13. She was more or less a blink and you miss it character in Captain America Winter Soldier, but we of course know from the comics that Agent 13 is Sharon Carter, not Peggy Carter, but Sharon Carter, Peggy Carter's granddaughter.
Yeah, and they dropped some hint about that in the movie in Winter Soldier 2. She said something about hearing stories from her grandmother about.
Yeah, and in the comics, Cap famously has a relationship with her, and Cap was not so successfully hitting on her in Captain America: Winter Soldier in the brief scene they had together. So, imagine more of that. I'm sure to be elaborated on. Also, we had, and this is actually kind of a big announcement, William Hurt is coming back as General Thunderbolt Ross.
Which I don't think we'll ever see Liv Tyler again.
I really wonder about that, man. I mean, Age of Ultron just kind of really ignored that Betty's a thing.
Yeah.
So it's too bad for Liv Tyler, but it's nice, I guess, that William Hurt's coming back. I think it's notable because it's the first time since Incredible Hulk, which was, 5 years ago that he was in a movie. So it's nice to see him back. They've kind of ignored the American military in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We've seen Talbot, of course, on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but this will be our first sort of like army guy back.
Yeah.
Also, it's notable that General Thunderbolt Ross in the comics becomes Red Hulk. So if they were looking to phase out Mark Ruffalo Green Hulk, maybe there's a chance that Red Hulk could show up.
They're going to phase out Mark Ruffalo Green Hulk?
I don't know. They have the advantage of making
so
CG.
so
He has, yeah. So, but there's a whole rights thing where they don't want to do an individual Hulk film right now because Universal Studios somehow still has distribution rights.
Yeah, I thought they couldn't do a standalone Hulk film. Right?
I think they can, but it's an issue of sharing money. And we know how much Marvel likes to share money, and I think they'd rather just put him in another Avengers movie and get all the profit versus sharing it with another studio.
What if they have a Hulk and Red Hulk movie? Is that a standalone Hulk?
I think that would still count as a standalone, so distribution would go to Universal, I think is what it is. So, but with Ross coming back, it definitely shows that they're not forgetting about that character. Yeah. And as we move towards end of contracts, we might see Cap replaced by Bucky. We might see, what were we saying earlier before the show? Thor replaced by Jane Foster because, spoiler for the comics, but there's a new Thor. She's been around for a while, but we figured out her identity this week. So I'm not going to say any more than that. I may have already given it away, but there's an opportunity to replace Thor. And then, of course, if they don't want to bring Mark Ruffalo back, I'm not sure what his contract deal is. Potentially, they could have Red Hulk showing up. So that's kind of interesting that I think we're getting Thunderbolt Ross back. So also, Tony will probably work with Ross in Civil War, supporting the American government as they hunt down heroes.
Yep.
So very interesting casting there. Also, we've got from justjared.com. Now, I don't know what that website is, but he released some images that seem pretty official of Captain America and Falcon on the set of Captain America Civil War. I'm putting those images up on the screen now. Captain America's costume looks pretty similar to how it looked in Age of Ultron.
Yeah.
I think the red's a little more muted, but we still have that same sort of deep navy color that started with Winter Soldier and continued in Age of Ultron. I don't really have any feelings on the costume. It seems kind of samey to what we saw in Age of Ultron.
Yep, kind of same with Falcon too. It's
exactly.
Yep.
So, but I do like that, unlike Captain America Winter Soldier, that Falcon's costume does have a bit more red to it. So I'm hoping the wings you don't see in the shot, but I'm hoping that the wings actually have a lot more red on them too. So I think that'd be kind of nice. And then Frank Grillo, actually, the actor who plays, and I'm going to forget the civilian name, but the actor who plays Crossbones, he was in Captain America Winter Soldier, had the fight scene with Falcon at the end in the tower before it crashed. He actually tweeted out an image of what seems to be the Crossbones costume. So I showed you the image of the Crossbones costume. I don't know that I'm necessarily sold on it. It seems a little bit like a motocross outfit with a skull spray painted on it. Not really kind of what I pictured for Crossbones. What do you think?
That was the Punisher style outfit?
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
I mean, it was, I guess I'll have to see it on film first. It didn't really make much of an impact on me in the concept stage.
Okay.
Yeah.
And honestly, the picture is actually kind of blurry, so I'm kind of surprised he was allowed to send that image out. So hopefully we get a better image of that, or maybe it would look better in a trailer or something, but I'm not immediately sold on the Crossbones look. Moving onward, we actually got a bit of X-Men Apocalypse to talk about as well. 2 weeks ago, Bryan Singer actually tweeted out an image of Scott and Alex's parents. Now, this image was notable for a couple of reasons. One is, Bryan Singer, despite earlier claims that Alex and Scott weren't related, has now confirmed that they are at least foster brothers, if not blood related. And the image of these parents don't seem very Starjammer-y.
No.
So it almost seems like it would have to be the Summers foster parents, unless they're just ignoring that altogether.
Yeah,
but
they're just kind of sitting on a couch, aren't they?
Watching the news, yeah. So, they don't seem very space epic heroic-y. Again, they may go with the foster parents option for the Scott and Alex's parents, but I would think that it'd be a missed opportunity, especially with the success of Guardians of the Galaxy, if we don't get Corsair and the Starjammers at some point.
Or at least leave the doorway open.
Yeah, leave the doorway open, yeah. So definitely an interesting photo that they released. Also, we had an image of James McAvoy sent out by Bryan Singer on his Twitter and on his Instagram, and it was just James McAvoy in a barber chair basically getting his head shaved. So it's interesting to finally see James McAvoy without any hair. He's looked largely ageless, I guess, between First Class and X-Men Days of Future Past. So it's nice to see him that he's actually losing his hair. I do feel like it's not going to be an age thing for his hair being gone. It's probably going to be some sort of science, technobabble reason.
I mean, if you've got the complete bald thing, that's not because of age, right?
Right. So maybe because he's using Cerebro too much, his hair is falling out or something. But it's nice to see bald Xavier, I think.
It is.
We also got an image that came out, and I don't have it here in my notes, of what appears to be Nazis in the woods with bow and arrows. And we don't know when that's taking place. Bryan Singer, I think, tweeted that out yesterday. So it seems like maybe a flashback memory for Magneto. They may be holding bows and arrows because they can't use guns against him.
Oh, yeah, that would make sense.
So I don't know what else to make from that scene. I doubt the scene takes place in the 80s just because of the way the guys are dressed.
Yeah, it has to be flashback.
Yeah, so that's kind of an interesting image. And then we actually got the official announcement. Now, we'd heard rumblings, and I think a Fox executive last fall kind of spilled the beans of a Rogue cut for X-Men Days of Future Past. We are getting the Rogue Cut edition, which, according to Bryan Singer, he did a video on Periscope, a new social media video kind of app. He did a Periscope from the set of X-Men Apocalypse. It was at a steel mill. He did mention that. And in that video, we also saw Michael Fassbender. So he's apparently, Magneto's at a steel mill at some point in the movie. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And during this video, he actually announced that the Rogue Cut is going to come out on July 14th. And it's going to have 17 extra minutes of footage integrated into the movie.
Excellent.
And all of these special features have been completed, or special effects have been completed. So this is a theatrical-worthy edition of the movie.
Filled it out with the Rogue stuff they cut out previously.
They did.
Yeah.
And it's notable that it's on July 14th because that is the 15th anniversary of X-Men 1 in theaters.
Nice.
So it's kind of a nice little tip of the hat to the franchise and a nice sort of anniversary for Bryan Singer and X-Men fans. So what are your thoughts on the Rogue Cut coming?
I'm curious what you think we can expect from it. Like, you think it's going to...
Oh, well, actually, on that point, we of course have 17 extra minutes of footage. Obviously, Rogue was probably doing more in the movie. The preview image that came out shortly after the announcement was an image of Rogue with her hands around Wolverine's head in the place of Shadowcat.
Interesting.
So I wonder if at X-Men Days of Future Past, when Shadowcat gets stabbed in the side, if maybe at that point Rogue's in the church with them and absorbs her powers and tries to continue it.
Makes sense, yeah.
So, but I also know from the first trailer that released, there's a scene where Magneto, Iceman, and I'm forgetting the third guy, are like walking down a hallway together. So I imagine at that point in the movie, they're probably on their way to Rogue, or Rogue's maybe with them at that point, because we don't even see that scene in the movie. So that was cut out. So I don't know that we're going to get a lot of content, at least in the past, but I think the future scenes may seem somewhat drastically different from what we saw before.
Well, do you think they cut her out because they already had Ellen Page there and were like, we don't really need...
I think she was cut out. Bryan Singer, what he said was that he felt like he was hitting a lot of the same story beats between the future and the present with Rogue in the movie, so he ultimately cut her scenes.
Gotcha.
So I guess we'll see what that's all about when the film actually comes out.
Yeah.
So it's also worth noting that the film is going to have 2 different commentary tracks. The original release of the movie on home video did not have any commentary at all. So there's going to be a theatrical commentary with Bryan Singer, and I believe Simon Kinberg's on that one, the writer. And then there's going to be an extended cut version with Bryan Singer, and then John Ottman, the guy who actually scored X-Men 2 and X-Men Days of Future Past, and is scoring X-Men Apocalypse, and also was the editor on X-Men 2 and X-Men Days of Future Past, and I believe he's the editor on X-Men Apocalypse. I'll have to look into that. So frequent collaborator with Bryan Singer. He worked with him on Jack the Giant Killer and on the movie Valkyrie, and I think even Superman Returns. So typically scores Bryan Singer films and does the film editing.
Very good.
Yeah, so that's
confirmation
pretty cool. Yeah, so lots of details coming out on it. I'm super excited for that set. I will be buying it day one.
Absolutely.
So then moving on here, we actually had a question. So I tweeted out and asked anybody if you had questions for our show, go ahead and send the questions our way, and we're going to go ahead and answer them. The first question we have here is from Ryan Harris. He said on Twitter, he said, hey, dude, what are your thoughts about the lack of Hugh Jackman confirmation for X-Men Apocalypse? Well, Ryan, I think it's a good time to talk about this while we're talking on X-Men Apocalypse. I'm not convinced that Hugh Jackman won't be in X-Men Apocalypse. I think that the way X-Men Days of Future Past ended, with Mystique leaving with Wolverine's body, they just can't leave that note hanging. You know, we have to see what happens. And I think that the Horsemen in X-Men Apocalypse, and this is a bit of a prediction here, I don't know anything, this could be totally wrong, guys, but I think what they're going to do with the Horsemen is make them all people we're familiar with. So I think that Wolverine may be the Horseman. Well, Wolverine won't be the Horseman of Death. That'll be Archangel. But Wolverine will be in there in some fashion, and I think that's when we're going to see Hugh Jackman. That's when we're going to find out that he's got his metal claws now, and that's going to be how they kind of explain all of that. And I think it will either be a surprise or they're just not ready to tell us yet. But I think it would make a lot of sense and be cool for the fans to see Wolverine, I think, in that light.
And it can also allow him to be in the movie without having to be in a major story role.
Exactly, right, yeah. He can take some time off and only show up, for like the big showdown.
He'll show up to fight and stuff, and they'll be like, oh, it's Wolverine, but he doesn't have to drive the movie.
Exactly, yeah. So I just think that'd be a really good way. And it's something that Hugh Jackman hasn't done yet either, been the villain in an X-Men movie. So might be a nice incentive for him, but I don't think he's not going to be in the movie. I just think they don't want us to know yet what they're doing with him. So there'll probably be some reveal or something at some point. But hopefully I'm not wrong on that. I think it'd be really cool for the fans. I think it'd be great for Hugh Jackman to kind of change things up. So, Ryan, that's what I think. I think that the confirmation is still coming. So let me know in the comments what you think of that, or anyone else watching, let me know what you think, how Hugh Jackman might actually be integrated into X-Men Apocalypse. So, all right, well, moving on then, let's go ahead and talk about comic books that came out. So in the last 2 weeks, we had Free Comic Book Day, and we had the start of Marvel's Secret War. Now, in preparation for Secret War, I actually was reading the original Secret War run. It was a 12-issue mini-series, maxi-series. I don't know how you want to look at it. But the premise of the original story was that a bunch of heroes were, they found this sort of ship or teleportation device in Central Park. They all showed up at different times. They went into it, and then they found themselves on a place called Battle World, where an alien presence known as the Beyonder wanted to see, basically, have them all fight and see who was strongest and how they did it. It was sort of a test, I guess, to see kind of how they worked their way through it. So this new Secret War we're told is going to have like references to that, but not necessarily be tied into the exact same story. Notable about the original Secret War is that Doctor Doom pretty much owned the show on the side of the villains, and this character named Molecule Man, who honestly I don't know outside of the original Secret War story. He was there and kind of an overpowered character, but was also sort of a sniveling, sidelined character who wasn't really getting into the fight too much. Those guys have shown up in the new Secret War. So let's go ahead and talk about Secret War Zero. I have the Free Comic Book Day edition of Secret War Zero right here. I'm going to put the cover up on the screen. In this particular issue, it seemed to be all recap.
Yeah.
We had Valeria Richards.
It's good for me because I needed it all.
Well, and I did too. I didn't read any of Jonathan Hickman's run on Avengers or New Avengers, so I kind of missed the building to this world-shattering incursion.
Yeah.
But let's go ahead and talk about our thoughts on the Free Comic Book Day issue. What did you think of all the information they kind of gave you?
It was definitely a big info dump. I mentioned this to you earlier. They talked about how one of the Reed Richards is like a 1,000-year-old genius.
Yes.
I don't know what that's all about. There was a lot, I mean, obviously the whole storyline made up about how there's going to be this Earth-Earth collision. Really, it was all these universes were going to collide, but now it's just down to these last two Earths, and that was a little bit overwhelming.
Yeah. But it came down to the Ultimate Universe and the 616 universe.
Yeah, and at the end, I can't remember if it was at the end of issue 0 or the end of issue 1. I think it was issue 0 maybe. No, it had to be issue 1. Anyway, where they actually collide, and it seems like a bunch of people have died.
Yes. I think that was at Secret Wars 1 was the end of that.
Yeah.
I think the way Zero ends is we see all of the 616 heroes taking off into the sky as the Ultimate Universe guys are coming back at them.
Okay, yeah, because they have their spaceship, their survival arc,
so
and they get away in it.
I'm glad that Secret War Zero came out, but yeah, you're right, man. It was totally an info dump, very dense stuff.
Yeah.
Typically, Marvel events try to, I think, do a better job of being a jumping on point for new readers. Secret War is not that, at least in the first couple of issues. But I do think it's kind of a fun ride so far.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to be a full-scale reboot, basically. There was even a page where it's like it had the Marvel Comics universe 1960-something to 2015.
Yeah.
And then Ultimate Universe and its lifespan, basically. It had like a tombstone for them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So that was a good book. It was a good free book. Glad we picked it up. And, of course, as I mentioned here, it did lead right into Secret Wars #1. So Secret Wars #1 was actually written by Jonathan Hickman again. And I forgot to mention the Free Comic Book Day Secret Wars 0. The art was done by Paul Renaud, and I think he did a serviceable job. I mean, there wasn't a lot of action. It was mostly dialogue delivered by Valeria Richards and a few other Fantastic Four members.
Yeah. There was some Doom in there too, wasn't there?
I think there was Doom, yeah. And then Secret War #1 was written by Jonathan Hickman as well, with the art done by S.H.I.E.L.D. Ribic. So I do like the artwork for S.H.I.E.L.D. Ribic. I can't think of a book that I've read that has had his artwork in it. I'm sure he's been working on New Avengers and Avengers. We just haven't been reading those books. But it's very, it's clean enough and it's nicely detailed. And in Secret Wars #1, for me, it was pretty confusing the whole way through because I wasn't entirely up to speed on everything despite Secret Wars 0.
Yeah, I felt the same way.
At the end of it, we definitely get the impression that the universe has ended. Sue Storm dies before that happens, and Reed Richards was doing everything he could to prevent it. Really just kind of a really dense issue. What I do think was a better issue was Secret Wars #2. So as Secret Wars #2 starts, again, Jonathan Hickman was writing, Esad Ribic on art again. As Secret Wars 2 begins, we kind of see Doom's perspective of everything has changed. And then we go straight to Thor Police Academy.
Yeah, we've got Thor backstory, picks up the hammer. I think there was even like a Loki who doesn't speak in that scene.
Yeah, there may have been. And we saw Beta Ray Bill in there.
And you got Odin on the side.
So, and it's interesting, I think, in Secret Wars 2 that Thor, or the Thors, are like the Universal Police Force.
Yeah.
So, kind of an interesting twist on the characters. Everything just seems very, what am I trying to say, medieval or hierarchical, of course. In the Secret War universe, we've got the Thor's policing everything, but then we have Doom, who seems to be the king, or if not, some people call him Doom God, right?
Yeah.
He seems to be overly in charge of everything. There are nations that are made up of the Hellfire Club. Apocalypse and his horsemen have a nation.
Everybody has their little fiefdom split up, and their barons of their fiefdoms.
Yes.
And you even see at the beginning Doom is being worshipped by the Asgardians.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and it's interesting. We learn that there's some dissension among the ranks in Secret Wars. Doctor Strange is in the book, and he's sort of the what would you call him? Well, they call him the sheriff, don't they? He's sort of Doom's chief of police or sheriff, and he's kind of in charge of bringing people to trial and serving out justice. But then it turns out that he's actually starting to think that something else is going on. He learns about a ship. Does he know it's a ship? Some sort of device. And he goes to check out what it is. And inside it turns out to be Thanos and a bunch of other like superpowered characters.
Their crew.
Yeah, their crew. So I don't know a lot about this particular crew. Again, I think it was explained more in Hickman's run on Avengers. But it's interesting to see the different, I think, aspects of Secret War. This new battle world. Just like we had in the original Secret War, we had a bunch of chunks of different planets put together. Battle world is very much the same in Secret Wars.
Well, Thanos seems to be going around trying to shut out like errant influences or something. And I don't know how that comes into play now that Doom has basically built his own universe. Like,
and is it Doom?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he had the mask, but we haven't seen under the mask yet. So
right, and he seems friendly enough with Sue Storm and Valeria that I'm wondering if it really is Victor Von Doom.
Yeah, when the universe was, at least before we got in there, was being constructed by Ultimate Reed Richards or something.
Yeah, and I'm not entirely clear on that either.
Works.
You guys know from watching our show, we read Uncanny Avengers and a few other books. Nothing that has directly really related to Secret Wars up to this point. But
yeah, so we don't have a lot of a setup here.
Yeah, but just taking it as at face value, I think the second issue is way more interesting than the first issue, and I'm curious to see the book move on. I want to see more of these broken, splintered up worlds. I liked kind of where we saw the Braddocks. Jamie Braddock, Brian Braddock, and Betsy Braddock. Yeah, and then the trial with Mr. Sinister. And I like that Jamie Braddock was kind of put in this sort of, pit of despair where, like, it's all Marvel zombies, it's symbiotes, it's Ultron robots, Annihilus, all these sort of big bads. Yeah. And that's kind of where the people go when they're punished. So I have a feeling we're going to see some sort of resistance possibly hidden in all that, dark territory.
Yeah, he got cast out. And didn't Thor and Odin say they would have to go after him or something?
They did. And Odin, I think, even makes a reference to the fact that he fought well until he died, but we never actually saw him die on panel. So yeah. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see kind of how that evolves. But looking forward to the next issue. And I was also surprised that we got issue 1 and issue 2 back to back. I haven't checked the release listing, but if we get all 8 issues in 8 weeks, I think that'd be amazing.
Yeah, that would be crazy.
So, but overall, enjoying the series. Are you enjoying the series?
Absolutely. I don't know, since they had the whole reboot, the whole series take on it, like you said, it's going to be 8 issues.
Yeah.
And then what? New Marvel continuity or?
I believe, yeah. Once it's done, we have our new status quo.
Yeah. So are they going to call it the Secret Wars continuity? How does that work?
I'm sure Marvel's going to have some banner. They've got the Heroic Age. They've got when X-Men changed back in the mid-2000s, they called it X-Men Reloaded. They'll have some event name that'll become the. Yeah, exactly. The Secret Age maybe is what they'll call it. So But yeah, great book so far, and I think the art is very good and the writing's been pretty good. So now we have another question. This one comes from Jeff Hintz via Facebook. He said, or asked, how long until 90s X-Men cartoon gets rebooted? And I think he was asking that as kind of a joke when I put out the offer for questions. But actually, Jeff, one of the different worlds in Secret Wars, and we'll review this book when it comes out, is a world based on the 1992 X-Men series. So while the X-Men animated series isn't necessarily getting a reboot anytime soon, we are going to get a comic based on that universe. So I'm really looking forward to that.
That reminds me, in the book, I think there was a part where there was a preview or a teaser of, what was it, a Scarlet Witch book or something?
Oh, yeah.
Where it's basically like, go check out her universe and this issue 0. So they're kicking off a bunch of, like, are each of these little fiefdoms going to have their own
I think
story?
so. Yeah, every country, I think, has got its own comic book running.
Yeah.
So, and then I think Marvel hasn't said this, but I'm sure whichever book sells well during Civil War is probably going to get integrated into the post-Secret War universe.
Mm-hmm.
Did I say Civil War?
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, I think they're going to look at sales for that. But hopefully 92 X-Men sales were pretty good.
Yeah.
And I'm also curious, if 92 X-Men sales are good, how that team is going to influence the X-Men coming out of Secret War. Will characters from that continuity be the main X-Men as we move forward?
That would be great.
It'd be kind of interesting. So, Jeff, look out for that comic. It's, I believe, just called Secret War X-Men 92. Much in the same vein as Batman 66, the comic book, or the recently released Wonder Woman 77, based on the Linda Carter series. So be checking that out, and we'll be reviewing that book when it comes out. So
are they trying to make Secret Wars their Infinite Crisis, I guess?
I think so.
Yeah.
They've still been kind of vague on what post-Secret War is going to be, but it seems like, what they're doing is handpicking interesting parts of continuity, and they're just going to mix and match and make the Marvel Universe coming out.
Interesting.
So, the next book we want to talk about is a book that we've been reviewing for a while. Uncanny Avengers number 4 came out this week. Now, this book was written by Rick Remender with art by Daniel Lacuna. So that's the same creative team that we've had with the previous books. And in this book, we're basically building to the final showdown with the High Evolutionary. We've gotten an update now on what Vision's been doing. Vision is considering leaving his perfect life with Eve. And Eve kind of said, I appreciate your feelings for your human friends, but really you owe it to me to stay. And basically says we've got children to look after. So that was kind of an interesting sort of moment. I mean, we've seen that, I think, the children before.
Yeah.
But we really get the impression that if Vision's going to leave, Eve's not going to have it.
Well, yeah, I wasn't sure if she was trying to keep him from leaving or just trying to convince him, or like if it was more that like she had a malicious intent of keeping him there, or if she was just like, don't leave our babies,
I think right now she's pleading genuinely, but I really feel like it's going to go south if he makes the choice to leave.
Probably.
And I think he's going to choose to leave.
Yeah, I mean, otherwise he's not a hero.
Right, yeah. So then we also see what's going on. Well, why don't you tell us about what's going on with Sabretooth?
So Sabretooth, they've reverted him to his feral instincts, and now he's fighting everyone. And he was fighting for Luminous and her group, but then he realized basically that he wanted to help the good guys.
Yeah.
So he's not a bad guy after all, I guess. And then he attacks Luminous, attacks a couple of the other people, and then runs out with the guy they were attacking. And we later see Luminous saying that he actually hurt her.
Yes, he did. He snuck up on behind her, actually, yeah.
And then she decides to super age him.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
I don't know if he was de-aged or if he will be de-aged, but right now he's like, I don't know, 100 years older.
Yeah, so we'll see how that pans out. And of course, we actually got a minor update, I guess, on Brother Voodoo, what he's doing. He's still speaking to spirits in that destroyed city that he was in, 2 issues ago when last time we saw him?
Yeah, and he says he has to do some sort of summoning, and they're going to allow him the power to do it or something.
Still waiting for a real development on that front.
Yeah.
Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch, though, they've actually encountered Rogue.
Yeah.
And Rogue's been trapped at the weird beakish-nosed guy for...
Yeah, they saved her from that guy.
Yeah,
but
so...
apparently he got Power Man out of her. Is it Power Man?
Wonder Man.
Wonder Man out of her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, because she tried to use her strength to open up a door, and she wasn't able to. So.
And she said she couldn't hear him anymore.
Oh, yes, that's right. Yeah, so now she's worried that he's gone. And then, actually, Quicksilver made the remark that it's okay if she's gone. Wanda's brought people back before, so we'll see what kind of happens with that. But I'm glad that Rogue's no longer captured, and I'm glad that she's teamed up with Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch at this point. And they're definitely making the move on the High Evolutionary.
Can't Wanda hex power Luminous out of existence?
Well, presumably, but Luminous has shown us that her hex powers are greater than Wanda's, so I guess we'll see kind of how that pans out.
What if she did it when Luminous wasn't expecting it?
Well, she's faster than Quicksilver, so I don't know. We'll see how that plans out or plays out. And then we actually saw Captain America for probably the first time since like the first issue or the second issue. I don't know, but he actually kind of came out of a tree, and the book kind of played it off, at least the way the High Evolutionary was talking, that he was there to help him. But then the book leaves a tease at the end of it saying the Avengers are all together and ready for the final showdown at the end. So
yeah, they had him even do the classic Avengers Assemble panel.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I'm not really sure where his allegiances lie, but it looks like everything's coming to a head in this next issue.
Yeah, there will be a fight. I'm hoping that at some point we'll see Rogue take Luminous's powers.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be really cool. I don't know if she'll keep him forever, though, because it would almost negate the need for Scarlet Witch or Quicksilver to be on the team. So I guess we have to figure out, too, what's going on with Wonder Man.
Yeah.
So all of that will probably be revealed. I get the impression that the next issue number 5, is the end of this opening story arc. Mm-hmm. And this book right now started before Secret War, and it's right now not really addressing Secret War. So I don't know if the next issue is going to be a Secret War tie-in, or if we're just not going to get this book until post-Secret War. So I'll have to see what kind of goes on with that.
Yeah, it seems like wouldn't Secret Wars have just completely destroyed this universe?
I would think so,
Except I guess we're on Counter-Earth, so it doesn't matter, right?
Well, maybe a sliver of Counter-Earth's on Secret Wars. Who knows? So, but I'm still enjoying the book, actually, quite a bit. I really like the art on it. Yep. And, yeah, it's just kind of an interesting take. Oh, the other thing that we should mention from this book, it is definitive now. Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch were never mutants.
Yeah.
High Evolutionary explains that he basically kidnapped them from their parents, experimented on them, and then when he decided the project wasn't working, he just dropped them off to the parents again and said, oh yeah, they're mutants.
And apparently Magneto's just been lying all along.
I don't know how Magneto would have known to lie the whole time. There's a lot of gray area with that I don't think is ever going to be clearly explained. Mm-hmm. So, but they're doing their best to make it seem that Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch were never mutants and can never be considered mutants again. So take that for what it is. Maybe post-Secret War, Marvel will get their head on and they'll decide that was a dumb idea. But we'll see. Outside of that, the book is, I think, moving along and telling an interesting story.
I would agree.
So, all right, well, that's it for the comics for this week. Let's go ahead and move on to the week in television news. So before we get to our reviews of episodes, I want to go ahead and bullet point several things. Now, you guys may remember a couple weeks ago I mentioned that the TCA Upfronts were coming up. Well, they've happened now. And we've got a bunch of news that came out. So I'm going to run through everything here. The first thing we have here is that Supergirl, which we've heard was announced before, will air on CBS at 8 p.m., 7 p.m. Central Time. And it's not going to start till post-football season. So don't expect it this September. Whenever the football season, the regular season finishes up, we're going to start to see Supergirl air on, I believe it was Mondays. I unfortunately didn't write the day down. But post-football season at 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So be on the lookout for that. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is officially renewed for a season 3. Right. So I don't know that was unexpected, but it's nice to see.
But speaking of unexpected...
Speaking of unexpected, Agent Carter has been renewed for a season 2, a show that didn't do very well in the ratings but was critically loved. So we had heard for a while that there was going to be a Hunter Bobby spinoff, but it looks like ABC chose to renew Carter instead of doing the Hunter and Bobby spinoff. So I find that kind of interesting. They did announce that the Agent Carter spinoff is going to be filming in Los Angeles and take place during the Atomic Age. They didn't give us a year, but Atomic Age would seem to suggest 1950s. Mm-hmm. So roughly 10 years after maybe the events of the first series. And they said that for now, only Haley Atwell is signed on to the show. But I've got to think, Jarvis is coming back.
Yeah.
And especially Carter's roommate, not Dottie, what was the girl's name?
Oh, yeah. I don't even remember her name now.
But yeah, that girl that was her next-door neighbor and then was in the Jarvis's house or Iron Man's house at the end of the first season, mm-hmm. She wanted to be an actress. So I've got to feel that both this girl and Carter are going to be going to Hollywood together so she can make it big for herself.
So you don't think Sousa's going to be there?
I think Sousa will show up when Carter's got to call home to get help. Mm-hmm. And Sousa's going to be the representative at S.H.I.E.L.D. Maybe Jack Thompson will be there too. I don't think they're going to be regulars on the show.
Probably.
So, but...
Speaking of being regulars on shows...
Yeah, speaking of being man, you're just like the king of transitions here. So, in light of Agent Carter being renewed, the Mockingbird Hunter spinoff is not moving forward. But ABC Network President Paulie says it's still certainly a possibility in the future. So we'll see where that's going. And I think as we get into our review of S.H.I.E.L.D., it definitely seemed like they were pairing up Hunter and Bobby to potentially move on to other things. But obviously, I don't think that's going to happen now.
Yeah.
So, Then we have Morena Baccarin. She has been promoted to a series regular for Gotham Season 2. I don't think anybody's disappointed by this.
No, and we'll have to discuss more when we get there, but given the direction they've taken with Barbara, it's not terribly surprising.
Right,
because they're not going to have that be Jim's love interest, at least for now.
Right, now, and they're also saving money now that Fish Mooney is not going to be a regular in Season 2 of Gotham, so they can definitely bring her on. Also, we touched on it a couple weeks back. The X-Files was getting announced for a new show, but no real details were available at the time, aside from Gillian Anderson, David Duchovny, and Chris Carter being involved. I think we've since learned that Skinner, what's his name? Mitch Pileggi, he's going to be involved as well as the cigarette smoking man. But now we officially know that X-Files is going to return January 24th in 2016 for a 6-episode miniseries event. This was announced by Fox at the Upfronts. Now, they did say that the 24th, I believe, is a Sunday, so it's going to be, I think, a 2-hour premiere on Sunday. And then the show starts that following Monday with a 1-hour show, so that's half your season done right there. And then for the next 3 weeks after that, the show will be airing on Mondays.
So they've got a 1-month event, basically.
Basically, yeah. So almost kind of in line with what we saw with Agent Carter being sort of a 2-month event. So maybe X-Files will be a mid-season replacement for another show on Fox. But if you're a fan of X-Files, definitely look forward to that. Then we have that Arrow and Flash are each renewed for their new seasons, and that... let's see here. Renewed for new seasons back in January of this year. I think that might be a little off. But it's not a surprise, I think, that Arrow's getting a Season 3.
Yeah, no surprises there.
Yeah, and Flash getting a Season 2. And then Arrow and Flash spinoff was officially named DC's Legends of Tomorrow.
And there's a trailer and a bunch of things. Well, we'll get there.
Yes. Now, the show's going to premiere January of next year, Legends of Tomorrow. And I find it interesting that it's airing in January. I wonder if it's going to be intended as a competition for Agent Carter, because... this year, CW/Warner Brothers kind of dropped the ball by not having a mid-season replacement. S.H.I.E.L.D. is basically able to run its own show and take over the airwaves without any competition showing new episodes. So it's nice to see DC moving in the same sort of direction.
I don't know if they're going to have that shorter format, though.
I don't know about that either. And no episode count was given for Legends of Tomorrow.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll have to wait and see what comes of that. And let's go ahead and talk about the trailer then for Legends of Tomorrow.
Okay.
We got about a 3-minute trailer for Legends of Tomorrow.
Yeah, it was rather long and revealed a lot for things. For example, since they've started the whole Atom plot line with Ray Palmer, I've been waiting. When are we going to see the miniaturization? When are we going to see it? And in the last episode of Arrow, in the finale, they tease you like you're about to see it, but then you don't see it. And it's strange to me they've decided to reveal it in the Legends of Tomorrow trailer, because that doesn't seem like me to be the best place to reveal something like that, but that's where they've done it. In addition to that, throughout the entire end of the season of Arrow, I've been like, when are they going to bring Sarah back?
Right.
Because she's dead on that show, and she's still alive on Legends of Tomorrow. They kind of showed a flash of her leaving the Lazarus Pit in the trailer.
Yes, I saw that, yeah.
They haven't revealed anything about the story of how that's going to come out.
Well, it's interesting. I think it's the trailer that actually says, while it's flashing names of characters, it calls her White Canary.
Yeah, White Canary. That's a new name for her, too.
Yeah, so I definitely think it's going to be a back from the dead sort of thing. Mm-hmm. So, and then just go ahead and run through really quick the other heroes that are going to be in the show.
Oh, gosh.
We got Heatwave and Captain Cold.
Cold's coming over. The trailer had, I think, Barry and Oliver, but they're not coming over.
Right, yeah, they'll probably just be in the first episode.
And there was some other new guy.
Where's the guy that's Firestorm, right?
No, there's another one. I can't remember who the last one is, but there's another new person, too.
Okay.
Somebody new to the show.
Yeah. You're talking about
Jay Jackson,
the guy with the trench coat.
That new guy.
Yeah,
there's that guy, too. But there's another character I think has a... Anyway, yeah.
Okay. So lots of stuff to see. You guys can see the trailer online right now. Like I said, it's about 3.5 minutes long. And one thing to note about this and the Supergirl trailer we're going to talk about in a minute, these aren't traditional trailers for television series. These are the trailers that CW and CBS used at the TCA Upfronts to introduce the concept of the show to the press that were available before they asked questions from the actors and the showrunner. So if you watch them, they do seem a bit spoilerish, but that's the purpose, because they want people to know what to expect. They want advertisers to know what to expect from the show. So just know that going in, you're probably going to spoil some of the first episode of Supergirl and Heroes of Tomorrow when you watch these.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and move on to the Supergirl trailer then.
Which, for another example, something that just completely, it seems to just take you through the course of the first episode.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, and you can see how people are treating her as a girl, and it's almost a joke, basically.
Yeah.
And then she gets named Supergirl, and also she kind of decides to reveal her powers to some people.
Many people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and we also learned that she's got a sister, Supergirl does. I'm guessing a foster sister or something.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know if she's going to be found in a field like Clark Kent was in Superman, But yeah, it's just kind of interesting to note that she has seemingly an Earth sister. The Jimmy Olsen is not on the show, but he's very different from the Jimmy Olsen we've seen in the past. Plus, he's older than Jimmy Olsen typically is. But he wants to be called James, and he's definitely a guy who's worked with Superman in the past. And I find that interesting because Burt Laney Productions is doing Supergirl. They're also doing Legends of Tomorrow. They're doing Flash. They're doing Arrow. There had been the hope, I think, by a lot of fans that all of these shows were somehow going to be connected.
Yep.
With the fact that Superman very much exists currently or had existed previously on the Supergirl show, I wonder if it's even possible for these shows to tie in now, because there has been no mention of Kryptonians or anything like that on Arrow and Flash.
Well, they haven't actually had Superman in that universe yet, even in Supergirl. Like, so it'll be remain to be seen, I guess, how they decide to take that.
Yeah.
They could, if they were linked after all this time, basically have a Superman show that ties them all together.
They could, yeah. So it would be interesting to see. My takeaway from the trailer, though, as far as like the time period, though, is I get the impression that Superman's no longer doing his saving the day bit. That Supergirl's now kind of around, and she looks up to the things that her cousin had done previously.
Yeah.
And that might even explain why James, who's typically at the Daily Bugle, is now an older, more seasoned guy who's at, what is it, a fashion mag or some sort of world news?
Something
I don't know
like
what they're at, but where Supergirl works now. Oh, and I found it kind of interesting that Supergirl's human persona seems to genuinely be a klutz, not be pretending to be a klutz like Clark Kent typically does.
Yeah.
So lots more from that trailer. It's about 6 minutes long, guys, so it's online as well. So definitely check it out and get your first look at the show.
But yeah, big time spoilers.
Big time spoilers, yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about these shows that came out. We're going to start with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Now, this show hit its finale this week. We're going to touch on the final episodes, final 2 episodes maybe. Next week, maybe we'll do a full sort of opinion piece on what we thought of the whole run of Season 2. But this week, we got a lot going on. We got the resolution to the war with the Inhumans. We saw that Jiaying, what her plan was as far as injuring Gonzalez in the second to last episode, was it? Or was that even 2 weeks ago?
It was last week.
Okay. And then we got updates on what's going on with Ward, updates with Hunter and Bobby, updates with Mac, who last time we saw him had quit S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah, and apparently he's still around.
Yeah, he's very much back. So overall, though, I thought the final episode had a lot good about it. I think that Cal has continued to be one of the strongest presence on this season, and I love the direction that his story arc went. I love that in the end, he was almost kind of the hero, and it's so tragic. I mean, this guy had murdered a lot of people. He was not a good guy. But he also did it just because he wanted to be with his daughter again, and I think the best moments for Kyle MacLachlan were when he was with his daughter and super excited about it.
And that's great that they decided to Tahiti him and keep him around.
Exactly, yeah. So now he's a vet by the end of the episode,
Yeah.
and we know that Tahiti didn't work on Coulson, so there's probably the chance that it's not going to work on Cal.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll see him again.
I do think, though, that the Dr. Hyde or Mr. Hyde makeup and effects for Cal were a little bit weak.
Yeah, they were strange.
Yeah.
I've been looking at images online of Dr. Hyde all season, and he looked much more monstrous than
Yes.
that. It wasn't as extreme as I expected.
I mean, they didn't even put him in like a padded hunchback suit or anything.
No.
He was just like regular Kyle MacLachlan with like an extended forehead.
Yeah, they kind of just stuck some, like he had more monstrous. Like when they first showed him transform into that, I was expecting it to be like stage 1 of a multiple stage transformation.
Yeah.
And it just kind of died right there, and I was like, huh.
Even when he first came over the bed, you see his nails, and then it's from behind as he's standing up, and he looks hunched, like he's bigger. And then it flips it around, and you're like, oh, it's just that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but
Yeah,
really,
I didn't really buy his super strength at all.
no, I didn't either, and he didn't really do a lot to show it off either. My favorite line of the episode, though, at least the final one, was when Mac is in that ventilation room, sitting on the case of all the Inhuman crystals, which leads into season 2. And Gordon walks into the room and he says, "Who are you?" And he says, "I'm the guy who kills Gordon."
Yeah, see, and I was wondering if that was actually going to come true, but
Yeah.
it didn't seem to.
Turns out that like Fitz was the one who actually accidentally gets the killing blow on him.
Yeah, and it's too bad that he's dead now, because now they can't transfer his consciousness into a dog and name him Lockjaw.
Haha, right? That'd be great. Also, it's interesting to note that at the end of this episode, there was a lot of Inhuman crystals that have ended up in the water.
Yeah.
And then they got bottled into fish oil.
Yeah.
And I think what we're going to see for season 3 is Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is going to be X-Men the TV series.
Lots more powered people.
I think, yeah, powered people are going to crop up everywhere, and I think Coulson, who's already been building a bunker for superpowered people, is going to be going nationwide, worldwide, saying, "Hey, you've got powers. Come on with me. We'll train you, and then we'll be heroes." So that's where I think the show's headed.
Kind of random, but I was just remembering in Secret Wars they made reference to metahumans, which surprised me.
Oh yeah, that's kind of a DC term.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So
Yeah, powered people on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. next season.
yeah.
And I don't think Agent 33 is going to be a main cast member next season.
Yeah, I don't think so either. There was a great moment where Ward was tricked into shooting Agent 33, which just makes him that much more scary, frankly. He is really, if he ever gets alone with Melinda May, it's going to be one heck of a showdown the next time we see it. So
basically, Agent 33 was having to run away in the May disguise and comes across Ward, and he's just like, oh, shoot.
Yeah, and that was after, though, May tricked Agent May, made Agent 33 put her face like May, and then said over a walkie, I'll come around the corner or something like that. So when Ward saw her, he's like, oh, there she is, bang, bang, bang. So thought that was fantastic. We're missing more of the episode. A lot happened in the show. Coulson lost a hand, so he's probably going to have a Deathlock hand next season.
Giant got killed, Raina got killed.
Yeah, Giant got killed, question mark. So we'll talk more about our season review and kind of include some of those thoughts in there. But overall, very, very positive opinion of the last episode. So moving on to Flash and Arrow. Why don't you go ahead and fill us in?
Okay, so starting with Flash, just to fill in some of the details of last week, we got Grodd for the first time, which was fun to see. And we also got Iris reacting to finding out about Barry being the Flash. So basically, Iris kind of joined the team and helped them. Her dad got kidnapped by Grodd. When they were looking for Harrison Wells, they found out about, I guess General Eilig from earlier in the season attacked, and they found out that he was mind-controlled by Grodd, and they had to go into the sewers to find him, and then Iris' dad got kidnapped, and basically she had to help Barry overcome the mind control to bring her dad back, and that was Grodd. And then this week we had more with Harrison Wells. It was basically all a Harrison Wells episode, and I thought it was the finale this week. Apparently it's not. Apparently there's one more episode. So that was nice because when I was watching it, I was like, this doesn't feel very much like a finale. But so Harrison Wells turns on the particle accelerator, and his end game with that isn't clear yet. I guess we'll find out next week. But because the particle accelerator is turning on, they realize that they need to get all of the criminal metahumans out of the accelerator chamber. So they work up this plan. Cisco creates a metahuman canceling room that they're going to transport them in, but they can't figure out a way to get like a caravan full of metahumans through the city without causing suspicion. So for some reason, they resort to Captain Cold, and Barry asks Captain Cold for help, and Captain Cold says he's going to help, and they go on this caravan, and Captain Cold sabotages it and lets all the metahumans out.
Oh god!
And now they're out in the wild.
How do you think that's going to play into Heroes of Tomorrow or Legends of Tomorrow?
Well, basically, Captain Cold said that each of these guys owes me a favor now.
Oh, okay.
So he basically has a list of people to call up to get some help from.
Very good.
And we didn't see Heatwave at all in this episode, but we did see Captain Cold's crazy sister, Golden Glider, got her name as well.
Okay.
I think that's everything pretty much that happened in Flash.
All right.
Iris decided that. She found the ring that Eddie was going to use to propose to her. They found Eddie too. He was under the sewer in the particle accelerator. Iris found the ring, confronted Eddie about it, and Eddie decided he doesn't want to marry her anymore. So that's not going to happen. Arrow. So last week on Arrow, long story short, Oliver Queen killed everyone. He revealed that he's actually been working for Ross the whole time. And the episode ends with this major fake out of him trying to kill everyone, which of course he's not going to. Like Ray Palmer is going to be on Legends of Tomorrow. There's no way he's dying there. Then we get back this week, and I've missed the part about. So there's a crossover at the end of the Flash episode where Barry and Oliver and Firestorm all fight Reverse Flash.
Okay.
And I mean, it's pretty cheesy, and the fight's completely ridiculous, but I was still grinning like an idiot the whole time because it's all three of them there.
Yeah.
So they got Harrison Wells at the end. Oliver used some speed eliminating nanites or something. Then at the beginning of this week, in Arrow, Barry shows up and lets them all out of the cell where they had been supposedly poisoned, but actually they'd all been inoculated by Merlin. Nobody died. And then they decide they have to go back to Starling City to help save everything. They find out that Damien Dark is in the city and is actually Ross's target. I think he's a Hive higher-up guy. He's Ross's real target, so they go to track him down, and it turns out he's not there anymore. but Ross is still going to kill Starling City because he promised he would do it or something. So Oliver has to stop him, and he fights him on a dam and stabs him and kills him, and Ross is dead now as far as anyone knows. And then Oliver decides to appoint Merlin. I think it was part of their deal that Merlin would help Ross if he would appoint him Ra's al Ghul. So at the end of the episode, we see that Merlin is now Ra's al Ghul. There was also a bit where Felicity flew around in the Palmer suit for a little while. And then
it fit her?
Yeah, apparently. And Palmer was tinkering around with his suit, and he, like I said earlier, he teases you that he's about to miniaturize, and then his whole lab explodes. So I'm guessing that's where Legends of Tomorrow is going to start off, basically. His lab has exploded, and nobody knows where Ray Palmer is, but he actually miniaturized, and now he's like running around the lab in small form. Diggle decided to run off. He was upset at Oliver because of the whole kidnapping his wife thing when he was pretending to be an agent of Ross. He pretty much is for sure going to come back. And as he was leaving, Oliver made some comment about how he should find some way to conceal his face in the future.
Okay.
So we might see a costume for Diggle. Also, Diggle said he's not a superhero, and Oliver said you're a hero. So Diggle's going to become a hero at some point, a full-on superhero. And then Oliver decides he and Felicity are going to ride off into the sunset, and he kind of looks toward the camera and is like, I'm happy. So I guess he's going to be happy now instead of broody and sad all the time.
Okay. Time to grow a goatee and...
and start telling some jokes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the way that works. So.
Yep. So, I guess we can do full season analysis next week. But, I think Flash had a pretty strong finale. Arrow is okay. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm less disappointed with its finale than some of the episodes leading up to it. So there's that.
All right. Well, let's move on to Gotham then.
Yeah.
We got quite a bit out of Gotham here. Of course, the last time we watched Gotham, they left everything in sort of a turf war between the different mafias.
Yep.
And that all kind of played out here. We had Maroni and Falcone and Fish Mooney and Jim Gordon, all these guys all in the same warehouse.
So at the beginning of the episode, Fish shows up again. Basically, immediately recruits Selena Kyle. There's stuff with Bruce and Alfred too. Bruce is looking for his dad's secret that Lucius told him about in the previous episode.
Yes.
So
and I got to say just really quick, I actually kind of enjoyed that subplot of everything going on in the episode. I liked that we were cutting back to Bruce searching for that secret.
Yeah, so he's tearing apart his dad's study because when he was a kid, his dad used to come into the study and close the doors, lock the doors, and play music loudly, and nobody knew what he was doing in there. So he's just tearing apart the whole place, and you can never tell the whole time whether Alfred knows what's going on, or doesn't know. And I guess we can go ahead and finish that plot line first. But so ultimately, Bruce realizes that what Lucius told him about his dad being a Stoic was a reference to Marcus Aurelius or something, and finds in the back of some book a controller that when he presses the button moves the fireplace back, and he and Alfred peer
while
back
music plays.
While music plays. And he and Alfred peer back there and see what looks to be leading down to a Batcave.
Yeah, so it almost seems to suggest that Thomas Wayne was a vigilante by night before Bruce ever even started doing the whole thing.
Quite possibly, and may have been aided by Lucius Fox.
Yes, yeah.
So Fish comes back into town and recruits Selena, and then you have Falcone captured by Maroni's men and being kept at kind of a dumpy hospital. And Penguin shows up with Butch to kill Falcone, but before he can do it, Gordon shows up, stops the two of them, chains them up, and then Maroni's men show up to finish Falcone, and Gordon decides he's going to cash in on one of Penguin's favors and save him and Butch while also saving Falcone. He has a shootout with Maroni's men, and the four of them get away. Then Falcone takes them to what he thinks is a safe house that nobody who's alive would know anything about, and Fish walks in. And she chains them up and decides to call Maroni and bring him down, because I guess if she turns over Falcone to Maroni, Maroni's going to give her a bunch of his kingdom, but Maroni can't keep from running his mouth at this meeting.
Right.
So she gets mad and decides to shoot him, and then they have a little shootout there. Meanwhile, Falcone, Harvey, Penguin, Gordon get away, but then they get caught by Selena, who brings them back to Fish. And while they're being captured, I guess, Penguin runs in with a machine gun and shoots everyone. Fish runs off, Gordon, Harvey, and Falcone run off, and then Penguin runs after Fish, who's up on a rooftop. and they have a little fight, and then Butch shows up while they're struggling and has to decide which of the two he wants to shoot, and ends up being unable to decide, shoots both of them, and has this touching little moment with Fish where he admits that he's always loved her or something, and Penguin takes advantage of this opportunity to beat Butch in the back with a board, and then push Fish over the wall into the water, where we don't see her outright dead, and she'll probably be back in a couple seasons.
Yeah.
And then Falcone decides he doesn't want to do the crime boss thing anymore.
Which I thought was kind of lame.
Yeah.
I mean, after everything that's gone, I mean, this is like the kingpin of crime on Gotham, and after everything that he's done, he's just ready to hang it up, and Gordon's willing to just let him go.
Yeah.
Now, he also gave a knife to Gordon.
He did. His dad's, like, a gift from his father, from Gordon's father, who Falcone described as the one honest man he ever knew or something like that. Yeah.
And it's worth noting that this whole time we had Kris Kringle approaching the Riddler about her missing boyfriend, and she figured out that the note that the boyfriend left actually spelled Enigma if you look at all the first letters.
Yep.
And Riddler didn't let on that was him.
Yeah,
but,
not to her.
Not to her, but then he had the most bizarre scene where he seemingly in front of our eyes went mentally nuts.
Yeah, he completely loses it, just has a breakdown, thinking about, I shouldn't have left a clue. It'll be okay because she won't figure it out, but she may figure it out. You know, basically going back and forth on all these issues.
Yeah. Really, for me, kind of turning into a Riddler I don't really want to see. I kind of liked him as sort of the socially oppressed and kind of nervous man who enjoys riddles, and I don't know. We'll see where this goes, but I'm a little concerned at this point. They seem to be trying to force him into the Arkham sort of mindset.
Yeah, everybody has to be just to have a screw loose or something.
Yeah, and then also we had, oh my goodness, I always forget Miranda Baccarin's name.
Sharon and Barbara.
Barbara, yeah.
Yeah, they were going through their therapy session, where for some reason the medical examiner from Gotham PD does both checkups and therapy sessions on former victims. But yeah, then basically she and Barbara are having their session, and Lee doesn't realize right away that Barbara knows that she and Jim are in a relationship. And eventually it becomes obvious that she knows, and Barbara describes ultimately how she actually killed her parents, and freaks out, picks up a knife, and chases Lee around the house until Lee can basically slam her head into the floor and render her unconsciousness, which just so happens to be right when Gordon and Harvey and Falcone show up.
Yeah, so
well timed.
Lots of stuff going on in this episode. I got to say, there were definitely things I liked about this episode. I liked what was going on with Bruce. I liked pretty much anytime Penguin's involved, I enjoy what's going on. But man, there's some just not right stuff about this episode. Pretty much anybody who isn't a main cast member can't fire a gun and is constantly missing. We had a lot of gunfire and a lot of unbelievable sort of avoidance of gunfire. At one point, Gordon's driving an ambulance that's got Penguin inside.
Yeah, it's like this is not an armored car; it's an ambulance.
Yeah, and they're firing completely on the front of it. Windshield front of the car never gets any bullet holes, and then they fire at the ambulance as it's driving away. Sparks flying off of it, no bullet holes.
Yep.
And Gordon is running from somebody. Oh, in the hospital, he's running from not Maroney's men? Yeah, and he takes cover behind a reception desk. And sparks are flying off the desk, wood countertops, sparks are flying off, and he's not getting hit. And it's just like, and then he's running down a hallway while guys are actively firing at him. Sparks all around him in the hallway, and he's never shot. So it's just, there's some really
there's some
bad
suspension
sort
of disbelief there.
Yeah, I mean, I think it could have been choreographed better, or they could have just done it differently altogether.
Also, it's kind of sad to me, like, I'm assuming they have, if not more ideas of what to do with Fish, at least they're leaving the option open to do more with her in the future.
Yes.
And it's kind of sad to me to think that they got an extra 5 episodes this season, and that's really how they want to really wrap up the Fish thing for right now. Like, have her get pushed off the top of a building. I don't know. It feels like they, as much time as they had, they needed more time with that character.
Yeah, well, they just completely ignored her for the last 2 episodes,
yeah, they really had no idea what to do with her, and once it became clear, they decided to stop using her until she suddenly comes back in, like, this I'm a supervillain role.
Right.
And it's like, no, you're not. You tried to take over the city and failed horribly, and then have been leading a group of prisoners on some island for a little while. I mean, who are you?
Yeah, right? So I guess we'll see when she comes back. Maybe they'll have a different writing team at that time, and she'll be more interesting of a character. So I also thought it was interesting. I really thought Penguin was going to kill Fish in this episode, and I don't think he did.
Yeah.
So I I just want him to get closer to that Iceberg Lounge Penguin and like ruler of Gotham crime. So
it's possible that could happen next season.
it's possible. So, but yeah, I'm kind of mixed on the finale there. I think I enjoyed the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. finale more.
Yeah.
So, all right, well, let's go ahead and move on then to our gaming news. Now, as you guys know, Greg does a lot of coverage on Disney Infinity. Every show, I leave the links to his website below in the comments of this video. But we had kind of predicted, accurately so, that Star Wars is going to be the next spinoff or the next edition of Disney Infinity 3.0. And then last show, or the show before that, we got the leaked image of what appeared to be box art for a new starter set. Well, now all of that stuff is out. I can't remember, was it on May the 4th when this came out, or was it sometime after that?
The official release was on the 5th.
The 5th, that's right, yeah. So, Revenge of the 5th.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to run down really quick all the stuff that was announced. We are getting Disney Infinity 3.0. That's finally official.
Yep.
It was announced via Game Informer, and then later on Disney Infinity TV. But Game Informer had the sort of debut article. This month's issue of the magazine is going to have a cover spread on it and an interior story, I think.
Yeah, they've been releasing new information almost every day, really.
So pretty, a lot of news coming out about that. There are going to be 3 different Star Wars themed play sets. There's going to be the starter pack, that's the Twilight of the Republic pack that covers episodes 1, 2, and 3 with Anakin Skywalker and Ahsoka Tano as the playable characters. And then we have the Rise of the Empire pack, which covers episodes 4 through 6 and has Luke Skywalker and Leia Organa as the playable characters. And then finally we have a set based on The Force Awakens, which no real details have been announced yet. We can probably assume who's going to be the playable characters in that, and who the additional ones are going to be. But they also then said that there's going to be several single-carded characters available. Those figures include Han Solo, Obi-Wan Kenobi, the young version, not the Alec Guinness version.
Young but bearded.
Young but bearded, yes. So Episode 3 Obi-Wan, basically. Yes. Darth Vader, Darth Maul, Yoda, and Chewbacca. It's also worth noting that unlike Disney Infinity 2.0 and even Disney Infinity 1, you will be able to take these Star Wars characters and play with them across different play sets during the story mode, even if it doesn't make sense chronologically.
I heard that there was going to be 1 crossover coin per character.
Oh,
so
interesting.
You'll find a crossover coin, and once you've got that, then you can play it.
Okay, so that's going to be required before you can... Okay.
But anybody will be able to cross over.
Okay, well, that's good. So, I mean, that gives you, I guess, incentive to play and find all the collectibles. And,
yep.
So, that's pretty cool then that we got all those characters coming.
I also saw John Vignoci in a video saying they're starting with these characters and then winked slyly at the camera.
Okay, we're just starting with just these.
Yes.
So I wonder if that's a hint that there's going to be more coming with Episode 7 then, or if we can expect a 3PO and R2.
It's also worth noting that these are in the Clone Wars art style.
Yes.
Which surprised a lot of people. They didn't know if we were going to do Rebels or Clone Wars or something different.
Yeah, I'm definitely surprised too. We don't really have anybody from Rebels on this,
Nope.
so it almost seems like that would have to be an expansion.
Yeah, I bet you that one's going to be coming in the future. Also, they mentioned that there was going to be 1 starter pack, and I think it's the Twilight of the Republic starter pack, and that's because they wanted to reduce customer confusion on what the starter pack is, because apparently people were confused about the Toy Box original starter pack with 2.0.
Okay.
So yeah, 1 starter pack. I guess I don't know if that means you're just stuck with the Clone Wars playset. I guess so.
Yeah, I guess so.
Separately.
Yeah. I also think it's notable, and this is just sort of from a marketing standpoint, I guess. We saw with Disney Infinity 2.0, the female characters, Black Widow and Gamora, you had no choice about purchasing. They came in play sets or in the starter kits because most toy companies are deathly afraid that little boys are not going to want to buy girl toys.
Yeah, so Leia's going to be in the...
Exactly. Leia's in the Rise Against the Empire. Ahsoka Tano's in the Twilight of the Republic. I'm sure The Force Awakens when it comes out. Who's the girl? Not Gwendolyn Christie, but the other one.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
The one who rides the fudgesicle ship in the original trailer. That's not really what it is, but that's what I call it. She is probably going to be one of the 2 playable characters that comes as part of the Force Awakens starter set. So just interesting to see that they're doing that again. You'll notice that none of these single-carded figures are female.
Yeah.
So take from that what you will, but I just find that kind of an interesting point.
They also announced the Disney Pixar Inside Out playset.
Yes, based on the Pixar movie coming out in a couple of weeks now.
And this confirms the 5 characters that were leaked a month ago almost now.
Yeah, that we reported on.
Yeah, of anger, joy, grief, sadness. Is that right? I don't even know.
No, I think that's right.
Yeah, anger, joy, grief, sadness, and... gosh, I can't remember who the last one is now.
I can't remember either.
But yeah, we saw those leaked figures, and those have been confirmed. We don't know anything about the playset yet. They also confirmed there will be an Avengers of Ultron themed playset where you will have Hulkbuster and Ultron, and we have seen Hulkbuster and Ultron art from the game.
Yes. And they said there's more to be announced on that, and they didn't say when, but I'm predicting it'll probably be Comic-Con this year when they reveal, if not E3, they'll probably reveal more at Comic-Con this year.
And we will almost certainly see Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch figures as well.
I would be very surprised if we don't.
Yeah, I don't know what they'll call them. But
right, yeah. That's the weird thing. And if you guys have seen my reviews of the mini-mates that I did recently, different marketing calls them Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, and other marketing is calling them Wanda and Pietro. So I don't know what their names are going to be by the time this comes out.
Yeah.
So, but a lot of news there, a lot to chew on. We are getting Disney original content. We are getting more Marvel content. We're getting mostly Star Wars content though. So some pretty cool stuff moving forward, and I'm really hoping that they actually give us, DLC content or just more content. I think one of the big problems with Disney Infinity 2.0 was they just kept pumping out the figures, but they weren't giving us anything to play through.
Yeah.
I mean, the story modes were like 4 to 5 hours long,
and you couldn't play them with your Disney Originals Toy Box characters.
Exactly.
So what can you do with Donald in 2.0?
Nothing.
Go into Toy Box.
Yeah, so I hope that they've learned from that. They've got a lot of different studios working on 3.0, so it seems like we're going to get at least stronger content. Brevity aside, we'll have stronger playable content.
Speaking of which, that reminds me, there's also going to be, I can't remember what all the studios were, but they've outsourced certain aspects
Ninja
of the
Theory,
game.
I think, the guys who worked on Devil May Cry, they're doing the lightsaber combat.
Yep.
And it's presumably the combo system and the battle system.
And there was another group that's doing, like the Star Wars playsets were split out. Twilight of the Republic was done by someone, and Rise of the Empire was done by another one. I can't remember who they were, but one of them was kind of a big studio. So.
Yes, and we also, and I'm forgetting the name of it, might be United Front, maybe, but they're working on kart racer mechanics, so that the driving is actually better. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if that means that we're going to get more like pod racing in this game, and they just haven't announced it yet.
Well, then we know that there's actually going to be a kart racing side game as well.
Okay.
Like a Mario Kart style racer.
Well, fantastic. Well, then that must be, and I may be off on this, but I really feel like United Front Games. No, it's not United Front Games. It's the guys who worked on Sonic All-Star Racing. Hmm. So I don't remember the name of that studio, but they're the ones that are actually going to handle the kart racing stuff. So we played just the demo of All-Star Racing, and it was good. I still think Mario feels the best as far as kart racing is concerned.
There's something else that they were going to do as well. There's going to be farming in the toy box now.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah,
so they're picking up some of that Minecraft.
Yeah, something like that. And I think they're going to be able to level up your sidekicks that way or something.
Oh,
not a whole lot of info on that yet. But yeah, just new mechanics, which is good.
So
a bunch of new creative toys and stuff in the toy box. So it'll be interesting to see how that develops as well.
Yeah. So, and also, well, we said, Iron Man and Ultron are going to be playable characters. So good stuff moving forward. Kind of surprised there's no Vision announced yet, but we'll see what happens as the game progresses. So, but that's all the big news for Disney Infinity 3.0. So a lot to chew on there.
And keep an eye out on DisneyInfinityCodes.com to see more on a pretty much day-to-day basis.
Well, there you go, guys. And as soon as they can get hands-on playable stuff for the figures, and maybe later this fall, they'll definitely have all that for you on the website. So, all right. So let's go ahead and talk about Family Guy and Star Trek. That was the mobile game Family Guy Get Stuff. We've been playing it for over a month. They extended the event by a week. Yep. We had to kind of push it off a week because we were a little bit full last week. But let's just go ahead and give our final impressions on the game. Overall, I really, really enjoyed how the Star Trek license was used with the sounds, the looks, the references, the design of like the ship, the design of the items that you could buy for your Quahog. There was a lot of positive there.
It just all cost too much.
Exactly.
Yep.
And I don't know that it was spaced out well enough so that you could earn everything. And again, we didn't really, Greg dropped some money in there, but I didn't drop any money in the game, and maybe that's my own fault for not buying stuff because this is a pay-to-play game, more or less. But if I'm not putting money in, I did feel like it was very challenging, especially towards the end, to be able to earn a lot of that in-game content. I missed out on Captain Kirk. I missed out on Uhura. What else did I miss out on? A couple of rooms that were available for unlock.
And they really expected you to have Guinan or Picard.
Premium characters that you had to pay for.
Well, Picard wasn't, but basically once they got to the last stage of the game, you needed 5 characters to do the main event that gives you the resource for all the other characters, basically. And you only, by free, can get 2 of them. And if you have 3 of them, you can massively boost your resources. But if you only have 2, you're kind of stuck at this lower tier where you can't get Picard, who's another character, who's one of the 5, and the other was Stewie, who I'm only just now getting to the point where I can start working on unlocking Stewie.
Yeah.
If you had started playing this when the Star Trek event began, there's no way you would be able to get Stewie unlocked. And we were both playing it pretty much constantly. and we just like I got Captain Kirk, I got Uhura, just barely. Got basically all the free content you could get, but I was playing it like on
setting phone timers and making sure you're checking in every time. So.
I used $4 of free Amazon credit so I could get Guinan and actually progress on that last bit.
And because you had Guinan, that's the only reason I couldn't clear everything is because I didn't have another character that could help with that final event.
Yeah, there was something where there's a boss that has a 24-hour timer, and if you can't kill him fast enough, you just can't kill him. And if you can't kill him, you then have to wait 24 hours for him to die, and then another 4 hours after that for him to respawn in a weaker form where you could kill him.
Yeah.
It's just really, it's definitely geared toward you spending money on it. And there were 6 premium characters. The cheapest was 200 clams, which is like $8 or something. So like $50 to get all the characters. Yeah. And that doesn't include all the other premium content, the in-town stuff you can build, the on-ship stuff you can build. Like the potential cost of getting everything in the game was hundreds of dollars.
Yes, and I gotta say, I do give TinyCo credit for making this partnership with CBS and being able to provide this content to us. I think that was great. And where they used it, if we're not talking about what you have to pay for, I do really like how a lot of it was integrated.
Yeah.
The sounds, the voice work, the look was all there. But it just kind of missed the mark a little bit by the end of the event. And yeah, we've been on Reddit, Greg especially has been on Reddit talking to people. We were the exception to the rule because we were able to be so engaged with it the whole way through. There's a lot of people, though, that probably missed out on 80% of the content because they just couldn't check in with the game regularly enough to be able to do anything.
Yeah.
So it's kind of disappointing that that's what happened. This is our first exposure with the Family Guy Get Stuff game. If there's a major, I'm sure during Comic-Con this year, there's going to be another sort of event because we've seen that we've missed out on characters from last year.
Yep, George Takei and Patrick Stewart were both Comic-Con.
Among other notable people.
Stan Lee, yeah.
Stan Lee, yeah. So we'll see what happens this year at Comic-Con, but hopefully TinyCo has learned from this. I think this was, again, outsider's perspective looking in, this seems to be the most popular of the events that they've done so far.
Yeah, and I think they probably made a killing off of it, too. I think they definitely made their money back. One thing that I thought was funny, like I wanted to be able to get Spock because you had all these original voice actors.
Yes.
And I wanted to see if he was voiced by Leonard Nimoy, which unfortunately I didn't get to see. But after, like the day the event left, after it left for a little bit, when I logged in, I got this little pop-up that was like, limited time now, get Spock for this discounted price that wasn't discounted at all.
I saw that too, actually, yeah.
And I was like, well, thanks for that. Just slap in the face again on your way out.
Yeah. So, but yeah.
And Spock was already more expensive than any other character.
He was, and of course they said the proceeds are going to some sort of foundation or whatever, but it's basically TinyCo was still making their money and they were charging extra so they could give this.
Well, and then when 7 of 9 showed up, she was just as expensive as Spock. There's no charity.
Well, yeah, exactly. So, now what's notable about Spock being in the games, if you guys don't know, we covered it on our show a couple months ago, Leonard Nimoy passed away.
Yes.
So we know for sure William Shatner and Nichelle Nichols, Kirk and Uhura lent their voice to the game recently.
Yeah.
So it's you could presume that they knew this event was coming for a while and recorded audio with Leonard Nimoy. Possibly this is the last time Leonard Nimoy ever, well, frankly, did anything, first of all, but the last time that he ever did anything Spock-related as well. So I'm going to keep searching online to see if anyone ever data mined the audio for that. I really want to hear what he did, if it was his voice or if they just used sound clips. I just want to know.
I would just love to be able to have the game as it was a week ago, just permanently stuck at that point.
Yes.
So that I could just go in and unlock all that stuff on my own time. But now it's gone.
Yeah, and we don't know that we'll ever get the Enterprise, the ability to travel to it ever again. And it's kind of sad that that part's missing. I understand licensing and everything, but, you know, it's unfortunate.
It is.
So, curse of the digital age and all that sort of stuff.
So while overall there were things I liked about it, I would say the biggest problem is that the game itself isn't that fun. That you set people on their tasks and then you just wait and come back later and set them on new tasks. The most fun I had with it was like the shooting Petercraft and asteroids and stuff like that, because you could like line them up and try to get a bunch in one shot, and there was game involved there.
Yeah.
But for everything else, it just kind of, I don't know, it feels a little bit shallow. Now that I have the characters and the event is over, I don't know that I'm going to go often back to them.
Yeah.
And, click on them and get their little sound bites. I don't know.
So, but it's fun that it's there.
It is.
So, you guys can still play the Family Guy Geek Stuff game. You've missed out on the Star Trek content. So, like I said, Comic-Con's coming up. They're definitely going to do something. They did something last year. So, if you want to get in on the ground floor, start now and start unlocking stuff for your city.
Definitely.
Because by the time that Comic-Con event shows up, it's kind of harsh to say, but you'll be punished if you haven't started already playing the game.
The sooner you start, the better prepared you'll be for whatever they're going to throw at you.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, then let's go ahead and talk about our pick of the week. Now, my pick of the week, I've already started reviewing a couple of these on my channel, but Diamond Select and Art Asylum released some X-Men mini-mates based off Uncanny X-Men number 275 specifically, but at that time, Jim Lee was doing the artwork for X-Men, Chris Claremont was writing, and they introduced these new sort of blue and yellow costumes that were based off the original X-Men costumes from the original X-Men number 1 in the 1960s, and they were just supposed to be the new look for the characters. Shortly after that, X-Men number 1 launched and everyone got new costumes again anyway. Those are the costumes that were used for the animated series in the 90s. But these costumes did actually come back in the mid-2000s as Danger Room training outfits, and we've seen them from time to time. But I really love this mini-mate set. You get a bunch of characters. The way they package them up, you get one Brotherhood member and one X-Men member, and all the X-Men tend to come with parts to make another X-Men. So I've been reviewing them. So far, I've done Banshee and Pyro, but I've got Wolverine and Jubilee on the way, as well as Jubilee's packed with Destiny, Wolverine's packed with Blob, and then there's still a Storm and Avalanche pack that's out there. So I'll be getting all of them and reviewing all of them.
That was great how it was Banshee converted into Gambit.
Yeah, Banshee converted into Gambit. So, and the great thing about the set too is because you have all these extra X-Men pieces, if you want to, you can go ahead and buy duplicates and actually have the entire cast of the X-Men built out if you want to do that. But I do credit Diamond for giving us all the X-Men in the most cost-efficient way for them that they could do that. So I'm a big fan of these mini-mates, though. I've always been a fan of X-Men, but these are like the 90s, the perfect like X-Men. So I'll be reviewing more of those, but that's my pick of the week. If you guys want to see more about those, check out my toy reviews. You'll see more of those going up as we move on. So what's your pick of the week, Greg?
Well, I finished the Fantastic Four animated series from the 90s,
yes.
so I'll have to pick that for my pick of the week. It was definitely, it has ups and downs. It's interesting to get to see all of the characters that make cameos, and there's a lot of them.
Yes.
But some of them just ride in for 30 seconds or less, and
Yeah.
they're just gone. I think Iron Man was only in that one at the beginning of an episode where he's like on TV and they see him.
Yeah.
And then they get back and they're like, oh, we don't want to miss the end of Iron Man.
Oh, yeah, so they're watching the Iron Man cartoon. I forgot that was one of the episodes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was interesting to see that there were some running plots like the Silver Surfer thing and the Inhumans with Crystal, and how Johnny wanted to get back to Crystal. It's like, yeah, at the beginning of season 2 you had that happen, and then running throughout the whole season, it's like he wants to get back to Crystal. And finally they do, which is good.
And it's different from the first season. They don't really have a long-form story arc. I guess
No.
Silver Surfer's the closest they get, but yeah.
And it really doesn't carry over through much of the season at all.
And really, actually, it's interesting that you point that out. The Fantastic Four cartoon, a lot of what that cartoon offers are introductions to characters that are going to be big in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, like the Inhumans.
Mm-hmm.
Also, Secret War, the book that we're reading. Characters like Doctor Doom, like, Galactus. I have a feeling he's going to show up before this is over.
Did we see him?
Annihilus. Well, we saw a statue of Galactus laying
Yeah.
on the ground. So I don't know if that's our Galactus or if that's something else going on. Galactus actually kind of played a big part in the original Secret War. While everyone was warring, he was just kind of standing there calling his ship to suck the power off of this planet. So, but yeah, it's just, I think it's a good cartoon. It's kind of campy. It's not kind of. It's completely campy.
It's definitely campy, but
Yeah.
like I said before, I think it's got basically the best realization of Galactus we've ever seen and may ever see.
Okay.
Just because that guy was so good at being Galactus, and you know, it's perfectly, it's exactly what you want him to be. It reminds me of a comment I saw about Grodd on Flash, where somebody said, "Can we just take a moment to appreciate that we just had a telepathic gorilla on TV, and you know, it wasn't turned into some other neutered thing. You
Yeah.
know, they actually went full comic book with it,
So
which it's nice to have that happen.
it is. So yeah, so that's what you recommend then. And
Sure.
At one point, guys, Fantastic Four was streaming on Netflix, but it was weird. You had to find the Iron Man animated series from the 90s, and they actually had the episodes up as the Marvel Action Hour. They just didn't list it that way on Netflix. So I don't know if it's still up that way. I don't know if you can still see the Fantastic Four cartoon, but I do think it streams on Amazon, I think, is where you can get all the Marvel cartoons from the 90s now. So definitely look into that. Otherwise, the series itself is still available on DVD. It was released when the first Fantastic Four film was in theaters. So, and it's got intros from Stan Lee on
Yep.
front of each episode. So it's fun. So, but that's a great pick of the week. So, well, guys, that's our show for this week. As you may have noticed, we actually took some questions from the viewers. So, if you guys want to ask us some questions, we'd love to address them on the show. You can tweet me at D21Beast, or you can tweet Greg at
Yoshimitsu47.
And we'll definitely be sure to respond to your questions on the show.
Or leave a comment on the video.
Yeah, or leave a comment on the video. We very much encourage interaction. So, but thanks for watching the show this week, guys. Thanks for sticking with us as we covered all that news. We had a lot that we went through this week. Got a little bit of a longer show for you guys this week than we typically have, but I think it was very worthwhile. We got a lot out. So be on the lookout. Next week, we're going to be covering our reviews of all the television superhero shows that are coming up.
Yep.
Also,
and then we'll be off on those for a while.
Exactly, right? So in future weeks, we aren't going to have television series to cover. So we've got a Beast Wars retrospective coming up. I hope you guys look forward to that. We also plan on doing a review of the original X-Men movie because it's been 15 years. And I think it'd be fun to go ahead and talk about our thoughts on that film, and we'll kind of go in depth with that. And also, if you guys didn't see my vlog that I put up recently, I will be moving soon. Now, not a lot of details to share with you guys right now, but just know that it'll probably be early July when I end up moving away from Greg, away from where we do the show. So the format of Project Geek Week may change in the future. We'll see how that works out. So we've only got a couple more shows left with this format. So just stick with us here and understand that if we do go away for a couple of weeks, and we'll let you know when our last show is before the big change. Just know that we will be coming back. We're going to figure it out whether we do Skype Hangouts or anything like that. So, but thanks again, guys, for watching this week. Hope you enjoyed what you saw here. Leave a comment, like, share, subscribe. Hit us up on Twitter. We'd love to interact with you guys. And we'll see you next week.